The war in the Pacific and the official end of World War II came about on the 2nd of September 1945 with the signing of the Instrument of Surrender for the United Nations aboard the Iowa class battleship USS Missouri by Japanese representatives in front of Allied reps and the remaining Pacific fleets of the US, Royal, and Royal Australian Navies in the fabled Tokyo Bay, the Berlin of the Pacific War. Japan would go through immense changes that would evolve the country to move away from its traditional societal roots into a Western country. However, it would not be an easy road for the Japanese industries, as the American-ruled government did what they could to restrict the development and construction of new locomotives for Japanese railways. As a result, the companies had to get creative when wanting to build up their fleets to similar numbers of pre-war times. This is where the ever-common name in these videos, Hideo Shima, comes into the story, as he decided to use the boilers of his heavy freight engines, the D-51s, and place them on a modified C-57 Pacific chassis in 1947, to see the feasibility of doing a production line for what would eventually become the Japanese National Railway's C61, built by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Nippon Sharyo. Due to it being one of Hideo Shima's designs, it is no surprise that it was a success, and the railway would expand the class to 20 in 1948, and then to 33 in 1949, with all of the class using D-51 boilers, but not to become freight engines, but instead fast express engines. This was because post-war Japan had seen a drastic decline in freight trains and a huge surge in passenger trains as people from severely bombed cities needed to be relocated to new areas to live in. It was also decided to build the C61s this way because it would mean that they could bypass the difficulties of getting permission from the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces, General Douglas MacArthur. However, there was some leeway, as the JNR would be able to build some new members of already existing classes, such as the smaller C-57 and C-59 Pacifics, and the C-58-262 Prairies that were built before and during the war, but continued construction of new members until 1947. Speaking of the class C-67, in order to secure the opportunity to not have the new C-61 class design be rejected by the Allies, the chassis and framework was based on the older Pacifics, but with the modifications of the rear pony truck having 2 axles instead of just 1 to make the new engines Hudsons. However, these weren't just modified rebuilds of Mikado freight engines and smaller Pacifics, but instead had some impressive new features, such as being the first Japanese-built locomotives to have automatic stokers. Moreover, they were fitted with 5-foot 9-inch drive wheels, 213.35 psi boiler, cylinder dimensions of 500mm by 660mm, a maximum axle load of 13.7 tons, capacity for 10 tons of coal and 3,739.5 gallons of water, a great area of 3.27 meters squared, a length of 42.3 feet from coupler to coupler, and a heating surface of 221.5 meters squared. As a result of the class being mostly of a rebuild combination of 2 older designs, the cost for production was roughly only 80% of the usual cost of a new locomotive of similar size in Japan, which was beneficial for the struggling economy, but the class was still smaller than originally planned, as there was meant to be 40 locomotives instead of just 33. After the class was completed, they were sent to the depots of Sendai and Utsunomiya on the Tohoku line, the Oku and Mito depots on the Joban line, and Tosu on the Kagoshima line, with the largest number sent to Sendai and Utsunomiya with 9 apiece. 9 were split between Oku and Mito, and the final 6 went to Tosu. All of the engines were put on fast express trains and proved to be well suited for the job, but found themselves in an awkward position as they were found to be heavier than the older C-57s, but weaker than the C-59s, C-60s, and C-62s, with a tractive effort of roughly 26,500 pounds, compared to the C-59's 30,556 pounds, and the C-60s and C-62's tractive effort of 30,580 pounds. Due to this, as well as the new electrification of the Tokaido mainline and the sudden influx of more powerful C-59s that were displaced, the decision was made to send the C-61s further north to the Tohoku line and the depots of Sendai and Aomori. Whilst they were there on the Tohoku line, the C-61s were allocated to the new Hakatsuru, or White Crane Limited Express, between Sendai and Aomori, and the prestigious Hayabusa, or Falcon Express, between Hakata and Kagoshima, until the mid-1960s when the class was beginning to be withdrawn from service. The C61s were rapidly taken out of service between March 1966 to December 1970, with the majority of their members from Sendai being the first to go at the end of March 1966. Number C61-3, number C61-8, number C61-10, number C61-25, number C61-26, and number C61-27. The next batch of 3 to be withdrawn from Sendai were in August 1966. Number C61-1, number C61-17, and number C61-23. However, it would not be until Christmas Day 1967 when another 3 were taken out of service. Number C61-4 and number C61-15 stabled at Sendai, and number C61-21 stabled at Taira. The event that caused the C61s to be removed from Morioka was the completion of the electrification of the line from Morioka to Aomori, where they worked on the Owu main line between Akita and Aomori until withdrawal between 1968 to 1973. In addition, 1968 would see the second largest number of withdrawals up to this point, with 5 all taken from Aomori Engine Depot, number C61-7, number C61-9, number C61-11, number C61-16, and number C61-22. The smallest number of withdrawals would come in 1969 with only 2, number C61-2, stabled at Sendai, and number C61-6, stabled at Aomori. After the withdrawal of number 2, there would be no more C61s left at Sendai Engine Depot. 1970 would be the last year for just 22.5 months that the class would have members withdrawn from service. 6 more engines that were posted at Kagoshima at the time were retired, number C61-12, number C61-13, number C61-14, number C61-31, number C61-32, and number C61-33, which was the last one to be taken out of service from Kagoshima. In 1971, the Tohoku-based engines were sent to Miyazaki to work on the final steam-hauled expresses that they were strong enough to pull, but even this new lease on life would not keep them safe from the potential of scrap. The class would be safe until 1972 when the 24th member of the class was taken out of service from Miyazaki Engine Depot, and the scrappings would begin again in late 1973, with 4 more being removed, number C61-19, number C61-20, and number C61-28 all removed from Miyazaki, and number C61-29 removed from Aomori. C61 number 18 was withdrawn in January 1974 from Miyazaki Engine Depot, and was the last C61 to be withdrawn after working on the Nippo main line between Miyazaki City to Kagoshima from October 1971 to the 18th of January 1974. However, she would not have the threat of scrap looming over her for long, because she would be preserved by a collector and rail enthusiast in Yatsuhiro, Kumamoto Prefecture. The downside is that the collector was only able to preserve the front section of the engine, and the rest of her was scrapped. In the years that followed, 3 more members would be preserved from scrap by various sources in various conditions. Number C61-2 would be preserved by the Umekoji Steam Locomotive Museum in Kyoto and restored to working condition. Number C61-19 was preserved at Shirayama Park in Kokobu, Kagoshima Prefecture, and number C61-20 was preserved on display at Kezoji Park in Isesaki City until she was restored in the late 2000s and operated by JR East on the SL Gunma service from 2011 with her cousin, JNR D51 number D51498.